Okay, so our next session is Why Everyone is Building Internal Development Platform by Kumar Rajan. Proven passionate, pragmatic engineering leader with 20 plus years of experience helping CXOs and organizations solving business problem with technology applying best software engineering practice. Proficiency in designing and implementing large complex soft systems with distributed systems, ML, data, and cloud technologies. Recent past focused on directing strategic products and transforming engineering culture. Kumar Ranjan, everyone.
So about 15 years back, I was in a similar conference. We went to a college for a recruitment drive. So, and that time, like out of 400 students, someone asked, like, what developers actually do? Like, so it was like, I don't know, it was like the heat of Delhi or whether it was like 400 people. I could not think of anything. So before I was going through the motion, like what I should answer, all of a sudden I said, good question. And then again, like a few months back, like we are working with a big fintech, a large multinational corporation. One of CXO, we were having casual talk, like, and while we were talking random thing, he asked, like, we have like 400 people working here and nothing gets done. And he said, like, Rajan, uh, what developers actually do? Yeah. So I thought, like, is it a philosophical question, or is looking for some book recommendation, or is he talking about some bigger thing in his mind, like? And while I was going these things, all of a sudden, I said, good question. Okay. But, the situation is in the current software development, like it's very difficult to figure out what actually developers are doing, what's their role, responsibility, and what things they want to do. So let's consider developer. Like I think most of you here can relate with a developer, software engineer, or builders who are making things. So what actually they do? So they are like a dev. So they will be writing code and test. So they do dev. So everybody has to do ops nowadays because we are in DevOps world. And security is important. We have to manage the account. We should not burn all the cash. And it should be on the cloud. Then everyone nowadays do data. Do you want to add ML there? And while you are thinking about, we should follow the hybrid strategy as well. And not that's all. We have to work on documents, Jira, how about your DORA metrics, you build, you run, and multiple things. So now all the developers are loaded with a lot of cognizant load. And there is a continuous disruption in their normal work. And while they're trying to figure out how developers work, so developers, I mean like a group of developers, a team, and while they're still figuring out their day-to-day work, it is happening throughout the organization. Every other team is trying to find a way of doing things. They are dealing with a new tech stack. They are working on the similar capability, and they are in different state of time. And no two teams are totally similar. They have this whole huge defragmentation of tech stacks. And sometimes a same team has a different version of their solution. So that's why like a developer works seems to be just write code and solve the problem, but it looks like we are doing everything else. And it's not about one or two organization or company. It seems to like industry-wise problem. A lot of time it has been said like we follow all the DevOps practices and our infrastructure has grown, but still our engineers are less productive. And sometimes multiple research and whenever I talk to different leaders in the organization, they will say developers are spending maybe 1 hour in a day writing code and doing things. So, but if you see what developers are going through, they're trying to discover which API should integrate with. Sometimes if service is not performing well, they want to find out which team owns that service and how to safeguard against their failure. And list goes on. And it's the phenomena is like it's got me thinking, the biggest problem in a developer experience is context switching. There is a continuous churn. There is a huge change fatigue going on in day-to-day life. And there is a cognitive overload. Nowadays, we are building so complex systems so that we have to be a specialist, an expert in every aspect of software development. And there is too many of things. So while all the developers are dealing with multiple various needs, so there are different approaches emerging in industry to solve that problem. There has been an internal development tool, and there has been idea of DevOps. So similar approach is this internal developer platform. So till AI actually solve all your problems, like developer has to do something about their own problem and build a system so that we can elevate developer experience. Okay. So before moving to that, like that was the only reference of AI in this talk. Okay. So bear with me. It will be like slightly outdated talk maybe in 1 year time. Okay. So let's see what is the current state of software engineering. So we didn't start it like that. Like some time back, there used to be a traditional ops, and then the concept of a shift left, DevOps, all things came into the picture. Traditional ID has a lot of concern, like it was a big, huge batch size, and it was handover from one team to other department, and there was like I did my job and you take care of things. So it was not innovative enough. The speed was very slow. And that started this whole DevOps and modern software engineering concept. So we had a good idea about continuous delivery, DevOps practices, and unicorn projects. And then we got to know how to measure a high-performing team. And while we progressed, we are making a lot of high-performing team, making engineers and developers more productive. With that, the whole software engineering has become more complex. There is too much of cognitive load, and there is a over-diversification of the whole system. And looks like there is a diminishing return on investment. So let's understand all those constraints one by one. So cognitive load is not any abstract, fluffy topic. It's like if you see a developer works, so every day they are involved in thinking and reasoning and making decisions. And the source of truth is code. And when they see one piece of code, they have to dig deep and find another code which has a conflicting meaning. This whole is creating so much confusion. End of day, you can't make any relevant decision. Similarly, this whole idea of shift left has created a huge burden on development team. What used to be like some operation and production support folks concern, now because of shift left, everything is moved in development team's bucket. And now there is so much context switching happening because of that. On top of that, we see a tech stack where people are using 4 databases and they have like a team of 3 folks. And there is no concrete concept. Everybody is trying to create a fancy pets for themselves, while this whole infrastructure is a cattle domain. Like, you don't have to invest so much energy and time. And a lot of time, the whole complexity has been overplayed. Like, there is an infra constraint, but we love to use microservices for everything. And the whole continuously changing the system has created such a change fatigue, and the whole system has become quite complicated. And on top of that, there is a huge dependency hell. Like, there is a inherent business dependency, but the way we design and present ourselves, they have created a structural, functional, domain dependencies. Like, it's very difficult to find out any specific isolated system which does live in their own. And there is always a concept of a law of diminishing returns. Like, if you continuously start improving one aspect of any complex adaptive system, after a certain time, you don't get that much of value. Sometimes you start deteriorating the productivity gain. But the modern software engineering is not all bad. So we have progressed tremendously, and we have high-performing teams. And when I say high-performing team, so there is an industry-wide acceptance of what it means. So as long as we can do frequent changes, we have a shorter lead time, and if there is a very few failures in our system, and if there is a failure, we should be able to recover faster. So as long as we can do this engineering part, we can call ourselves as a high-performing team. So what was the pre-DevOps era? Like, there was a dev used to focus on only a business or solution aspect of thing, and then there was a operation side of thing. And in between, there was a handover happen and coordination required to run the system in the operation. And that was creating extra effort. So rather than a small amount of effort, because of coordination, overhead, and work queue, it was a huge. So, and that's the idea of, or the promise of DevOps. It will reduce that additional overhead, merge dev and ops, and everything will spend less time on this whole activity. So that was the speed gain we got after we moved to this whole DevOps journey. So now that's great for an individual team, but now see, when it's a large organization, say we have 100+ developers, how we can scale. So let's assume we have 100 developers, everybody is doing DevOps. So if you put out one developer and let that person build one tooling so that every other one can become more productive. So we can have 1% productivity gain. So continue on that idea. Let's bring more people and start building a platform so that other developers become more productive. It sounds like a great promise, but if you do more of that, you will hit another constraint, and because not enough people are working on actual value, your overall system performance, overall productivity will reduce. So the DevOps teams are having some scale issue nowadays. And on top of that, like how long you can continuously with doing so much of cognition load and working with the complexity, and everybody has to deal with that. And there is always a need to have more of a compliant and regulated product. And if you have to build it for a longer period of time, so you should have some sustainability in your system. So it looks like there is a multiple dimension how to build a high-performing team. And there is always looks like a choice. Either you optimize for speed, or you want to optimize for scale, or you want to optimize to manage the chaos for a longer run, what I'm calling sustainability. So this choice, let's look in detail about few choices, like whether you should do decentralization or centralization. Decentralization can give you autonomy, but centralization can give you cost effectiveness. Then also concern cover like how much innovation and exploration you want to do, or you want to exploit and leverage your system. Then is always a trade-off between innovation and versus standardization. Innovation allows you move fast, but standardization gives you a stable and trusted product. It gives a safe and secure platform. But it looks like a classic management problem, isn't it? But actually, we are not building buildings. So this classic constraints, a lot of time, doesn't apply to software development. So here, like how internal developer platform can help you. So internal developer platform focuses on economy of speed and economy of scale, and at the same time, it is promising to provide us a sustainable ecology where it can build a new product or new innovation on top of an internal focus platform. So let's understand internal developer platform. What's in the name? So internal is clearly putting the focus on underlying user base. It's not meant for external customers. It is for internal system usage. Developers are their prime user. They will be using IDP to perform and build on top of that. And platform is highlighting it's not an end product. It is a platform which developers will compose to solve their problems. So platform is a big concept. So it's basically, it allows you to extend for your use case. And in this context, the platform, you can think as a product, not as a supporting team or a project. So this is like a typical example of what platforms is. So all are familiar with a car platform where we have a like underlying infrastructure in build, and on top of that you have a model-specific good hat. Like, so platforms are high on investment, but it gives you a lot of standardization and leverage. So it solves your economy of scale problem. And what we are calling hat here is more of a low investment, but it is your unique proposition. It is a differentiator factor. And it helps in an economy of speed. Like you can have a strong platform, and top of that, you can iterate very quickly and build something new. And platform doesn't have to be very rigid. There can be a support large variety of use cases. Okay. So, for example, Netflix says it is our centralized tooling as a paved roadway. So platform doesn't has to be like what runs on operational. It can do a lot of work for your internal tooling as well. And as I said, like platform can be can provide you self-service and can help us in multiple things. Okay. So developer. So the main user of this IDP is developers. Developers, I mean, all the people are involved in building a system. And whoever is building IDP, their user is a set of developers so that they can build on top of it. And internal, so idea is it has to be internal tooling. It should not solve a global problem throughout the world. If there is a service, a public cloud available, you're not going to compete and building for that. Like whoever is building IDP, they will use this public cloud service, but they will bake in abstractions and their own preferences so that we can quickly build our on top of that. So it provides us a uniform environment where development teams can build easily enough. They don't have to understand all the details of infrastructure monitoring and CI/CD. It's provide the right level of abstraction for them. But it sounds like another DevOps team, isn't it? But actually, it's not about a project or team. It's about a building's correct abstraction and services so that developers can use for itself. Okay. And it's less of an internal tooling. It is more of a abstraction, providing a golden path and having an infrastructure orchestration, and to explore internal knowledge base, have a service catalog. And it's very similar to Backstage. So Backstage is actually an internal developer portal. It's more of a interface to underlying a process and tooling. So main differentiator is like a Backstage or internal developer portal focusing on interface part of it, while internal developer platform focusing on the underlying infrastructure and platform. But a lot of time they are very synonyms. They are used one another in an overloaded way. So to be more specific, portals are interfaces for discovering and accessing underlying platform. So now the idea is like every teams can leverage that IDP. So what is the common methods we can build IDPs? So one of the core capabilities of IDPs would provide that infrastructure orchestration, maybe some paved roadways and deployment management. And there is a lot of a huge funnel of infrastructure which IDP can abstract out so that platform app developers can focus on a specific value proposition rather than solving general problems. It also acts as a harmonizing the developer practices by providing golden path, and it also provided escape hatches so that if required, if you are able to meet your 80% of use cases, but for some unique use cases, you can permit it to diverge. So I think there is enough IDP as a platform or functionality available, or you can combine multiple open source projects to achieve that. One of the common use example is Backstage, where you use Backstage, Argo CD, Crossplane, and Caverno to simulate a nice IDP. And one key aspect, whenever you're building IDP to focus on, do not focus on day zero, because day zero is a nice, happy demo day, and after few progression, the user start using system differently. So don't build for nice, fancy structure. Just treat like a product and evolve as per user need. So now like it looks like a general framework, but actually IDP has to be focused on internal use cases. Otherwise, open public platform will support your need. Every organization has its own preferences and its own context of the domain. It has to be specific to your user need. It has to be specific to your culture and your default preferences. Like, actually, it's more than platform, it is a way to automate your culture. And whenever your IDPs are built, it has to be built by the organization and company themselves. Actually, it's a glue of multiple tooling to help your developers so that they don't have to continuously think about your context, what should be the default value, what tech stack I should prefer, which database is our default choice. And sometimes it's also okay not to build IDP. For example, you are very small. If scale is such a small, then you don't invest heavily on it. Think about, like, unless you have a clear IT strategy in place, don't get into IDP. It has to be, first you have to build your preferences, your culture, and your tech strategy. I think after that, it makes sense to invest on IDP. And overall, like the whole DevOps journey has taught us anything. It has taught us, like, every organization and high-performing team need a support from the organization so that we can leverage each other's body of knowledge. Rather than each team suffering in its isolation, we can build tooling and contribute in the platform so that every other team can leverage it. It looks like a nice evolution of DevOps so that it helps developers to be more productive. It's a quote from someone who say, like, it is an attempt of a centralizing expertise while decentralization innovation. And that's the core premise of building internal tool or DevOps or internal developer platform. Like, common concern and common standardization will be baked into so that developers can focus on a specific innovation and value they are supposed to provide. So that's the whole idea of IDP, and to me it looks like a nice evolution of modern software engineering. It is making software engineering more effective. Rather than everybody building homegrown solutions, we are leveraging body of knowledge. It is an evolution of high-performing team so that they can collaborate, and it is also enhancing developer experience. And that's the core piece. Like, it is putting developers or builders in the center of its main concern. The idea is to have a speed, scale, and sustainability for developers. So that's all. Like, that's the IDP for you. Thank you.